Hello. Hi, hello, and welcome, Simon. You're the first person that we are interviewing here for this series 10 minutes, 10 questions. And this is a series celebrating 2020, celebrating our launch, which is on 24th of October for Eqonomix, which is a recruitment platform. And that already partners with Shortlist, but might as well have a conversation around it and let our viewers and audience know about it. And rather than me introducing, I would like you to talk a bit about Shortlist before we get into question answer segment.
Sure. So thanks so much for having me, Praful. It's great to be here, and congratulations, first of all, on launching Eqonomix. It's great to see that happen. I'm Simon Desjardins. I'm one of the co-founders of Shortlist. We're a talent technology company based between India and Africa, and support companies to find terrific talent around the globe. And have been around since 2015 and are now working with hundreds of clients across the world. We've placed thousands of young professionals and senior professionals into great jobs, and we're just excited about what the future holds. But one of the reasons that we started the company, in fact, one of the key reasons, was because of how unobjective the hiring process is for the vast majority of people operating in India. If you don't come from pedigree, or if you happen to come from a minority, whether that's a gender minority or another minority that might be less visible, it's so hard to stand out from the crowd, and it's so hard to identify job opportunities where you will be truly valued for who you are and what your professional skills are, as opposed to the background that you might come from or the minority that you may be a part of. And so we're just excited to leverage technology in ways that provides objective ways for candidates to demonstrate what they can actually do, and show talent to employers based on who's done the best on competency-based assessments, as opposed to whether they happen to be a woman or a man, or gay or straight. We're trying to keep the process as objective as possible.
Let's move on to the next one. So what's the gender plus racial diversity in the management plan that you have? Like, I know that Shortlist has one of the most diverse teams, and it's inclusive of everybody, and it's got people from all kind of backgrounds and all kind of pedigrees, and you all walk the talk. So what's it planned?
It's a great question, and the racial and gender diversity in our management was not planned as such, but what was planned was the value that we place on diversity. We believe fundamentally that people perform better when they can be themselves in the workplace, and we know that diverse teams in general perform better across the board. As people, diversity is or as a company, the idea of learning from difference and diversity is core to who we are and what we do as a company. And so that was the value that we started with. And what ended up happening as a result of that value was a very diverse management team across many nationalities and backgrounds and genders. We're actually really proud that the vast majority of our management team is women. We also measure diversity across different types of diversity, from working styles to personality to nationality to gender to sexual orientation, and other elements of diversity. So we try to take a pretty broad definition of that term.
So what excites you about diversity hiring? Because since we are helping others understand this process and to implement within their ecosystems and to benefit from it. So what excites you about diversity hiring overall? Because you're on both the end to employ people from diverse backgrounds, as well as we help organizations do that as well. So what's the excitement here?
So what excites me about diversity hiring is the way that technology can play a role in getting at objective hiring outcomes, and where you are able as a candidate to see a hiring process and a recruitment process that clearly values diversity, number one, so you feel welcome. And number two is that we are assessing your competence and your prioritization in the mix of a recruitment context on the basis of your objective skills for a particular role, as opposed to the vertical of diversity that you happen to be a part of. That excites me. The other thing that excites me about diversity hiring in India in particular is that we are starting to increasingly get specific requests from clients to hire for either women or LGBT candidates. So employers, and this wasn't true only 4 or 5 years ago, we are increasingly getting clients that are specifically asking for that. In fact, we have some that are saying if you can find any candidates that are strong from this particular pool of diversity or from this particular diversity pool, we want to talk to them. And that's a sea change from where we were only a couple of years ago.
So the pivot has happened. Pivot has happened for the world in 2020, but it was happening for the diversity piece for a while, and it's been so. And quickly, we want to understand your definition of belonging, because out of diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, equity is taken literally, and belonging is, where it is out of the diversity and inclusion piece. So how do you look at it?
Yeah, to me, it goes back to one of our values, which is learning from differences and valuing differences. Belonging doesn't mean everybody is the same and therefore I belong. Belonging is actually everybody's probably a little bit different, but we value each other's differences and therefore I belong. Belonging also means the feeling that you have in the workplace to share with others who you are and where you come from and what pool of diversity you might come from, and not feel as though you might be discriminated against as a result of that vertical of diversity. I think if you feel that you can genuinely be yourself in the workplace, no matter who you are, that's a feeling of belongingness.
Pretty much so. I agree on that one. And moving ahead to a more specific, queer spaces, a whole lot of people don't understand it, because belonging there or fitting in or not is a very big conversation in LGBT lives. So as the alphabet soup of LGBTQIA it keeps increasing because it gets fragmented and segment oriented everywhere across the world. It's different. So these nuances keep emerging, and the binary keeps emerging. And so what are your views on that? What are your views on that? Since you're pretty out about your own, self, and so
sure.
How do you look at it?
Yeah, certainly from a recruitment context, to me, what is most important is that employers understand the importance of just calling out the various different elements of the LGBTQIA community. They don't have to understand them all. They don't have to hire for each sub part of that individually. But I think it is important for them to be seen to be caring about that community, whether they use every letter in that alphabet or one of those letters or two of those letters. I think it's just important that they just, even just being public about them being positive about the LGBTQIA community is a giant step forward. And that ought to be celebrated. And then when you have people from those different components, they're much more likely to feel as though they might be welcome, even though they know their employer might not fully understand the nuances.
So as a whole lot of people who come, corporates come for the most visible part of the alphabet soup, and people ask for, hey, can we have transgender candidates? And then when you go back and look at the job profile as well as the skill mapping and fitment, etc., that might not be the case, and that is often seen because when people look for tick box mandates, they do not see these things. But our questions now will turn increasingly lighter. They are still not so much on the recruitment piece and not so much on the, your role as a recruiter, our role as somebody who facilitates that. But
Sure.
as a professional, what is the highlight of your working day?
The highlight of my working day tends to be when I'm speaking to great talent and when I'm speaking to folks that are excited about their career opportunities and excited about how they can stand out from the crowd, excited about sharing their strengths and interests and uniqueness in the world. And I'm excited when I speak to amazing employers who genuinely value diversity and who see the benefits of that diversity and are excited by that. And when we have a meeting of minds on that front, and there's a clear value around quality and around diversity, there's no limit to what we can do. So those are the parts of my day that get me the most excited.
Brilliant. Quickly, if you can tell us your ideal job, profession, vocation, what do you see as your particular ideal job, profession, or vocation?
Sure. I mean, my ideal job, and this is going to sound a little bit cliche, but I do feel like as a founder of this company, I do feel like I am in that job right now. I've always wanted to be at the intersection of talent and opportunity, and helping great talent to find that next step in their career, and ultimately to match people with great jobs. The other thing that makes this ideal is that we want to be part of the macro trend, which is changing how hiring and recruitment is done overall, away from this old world of, tell me what you've done on this CV with this piece of paper, to a world of show me what you can do, or demonstrated abilities of competence. And we're in that right now, and it's tough and challenging and exciting. And we're on an incredible path to scale. So we're excited to be partnering with Equinox, or with Eqonomix on that path.
So, the part of work in progress, that bit is so beautiful, because no matter where you are on the tangent and on the spectrum, you're still ascending there, or you're still learning more, or still gaining this thing. So idealism for me is still work in progress, because your ideals keep shifting. It's like a horizon, and you can find that within your existing framework. It's just that, because you have more to work towards, you have more to achieve. So now, if you can tell us about top 3 inclusive organizations that you admire, because with your skill set, with your understanding, it is much different, because you've seen the world with very different lens, and up close and on ground, and from an investor perspective, and from many different hats that you wear. So top 3 inclusive organizations that you admire.
Sure, it's a good question. I mean, we tend to, as a company, we work with over 700 employers around the world. It's difficult to list or to prioritize, the top 3 when it comes to diversity. Although one employer does come to mind, and that's Shell in the energy sector. They are a company that has consistently been on the cutting edge, in our view, of the LGBTQIA topic, and have been proactively looking for talent to that community, have been actively working with recruiters who prioritize that, have been prioritizing that topic in the recruitment process to various extents around the world. It's a former employer of mine, so I know it pretty well from certainly a European and Indian and African context, but I know it's a global priority for them. And it's terrific to see the support that they give to members of the community at the workplace, whether you're working in India, whether you're working in London, or whether you're working in in Houston or somewhere around the world, and sometimes in places that aren't necessarily as open and welcoming to that community. So it's an employer that we'd love to do more work with, and we have done a lot of work with in the past.
2 more.
Sure.
Would you like to go for that, or?
Oh, I think I'll leave it at 1. I'd probably not want to be seen to be prioritizing the top 3, but I'll give one example that I'm very familiar with.
All right, great.
Yeah.
So, can you name a book by any author from the diversity spectrum that you would like to recommend to others to read? Because food for thought is very different from for pioneers and thought leaders than people who are, looking at world in a very different stage of their career and where they come from. So diversity of content that we consume is also something that is important. So a book.
There are so many great books on the diversity spectrum, but and that's where I could list several. But one that I've read recently was ocean belongs on Earth were briefly gorgeous. It's written by a Vietnamese American author. This was his first fiction book, and it's a story of his experience growing up as a gay Vietnamese American, and worth reading both for the quality of the prose as well as the way that he covers this topic, and not just the gender diversity or the LGBT community perspective, but also just generally being a minority growing up across all sorts of different aspects of his life, and coming to terms with that, and is writing so beautifully about it. It's probably the best book I've read in a long time.
So apart from that, if you can give us two more, because you did not give us that organization, you can give us two more books maybe, quickly.
Sure. The other, one second. The other maybe one other book I would recommend on the diversity spectrum is called A Little Life, by Hanya Yanagihara, who's also an American author who's written, and it was not, I think, meant to be a diversity book per se. I don't think that author would ever describe that book in those terms, but she has written a masterpiece, I think, and I read it last December and was just blown away by it. If you've not read it, it will consume you. Do not read it when you need to be productive or thinking about work, because you're probably going to need to take a couple of weeks off to absorb it and be affected by it. That was an incredible, but from on the diversity front, it follows four amazingly close friends over many years, three of whom are gay, and I won't give anything away, but it's a masterpiece in my view.
Sure, thank you so much. Finally, if you have a message for Eqonomix team for the launch, and what would you advise us?
Sure. So my message to the Eqonomix team is number one, congratulations for getting this set up and launching it. You're doing this at a time when more and more there's a greater need for this kind of organization to be set up, and I would encourage you to be more visible, or as visible as possible, and celebrating the employers who value this, who value diversity, and who value what you are doing. And we're excited to be an Eqonomix partner as Shortlist. So good luck and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.